We started the broadcast. Anand sir, are you able to see my screen?
Can see your.
Sir, your voice is cracking. Can you please repeat again?
Yeah, I can see your screen. Can you hear me correctly?
Yes, now I'm getting you correctly. From audience, I would like to ask Anil sir if he is getting me correctly. Anil Gulanikar sir. It's 3:58 now. We'll start our session in next 2 minutes. Mr. Ajju. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for finding time and visiting today's webinar. We hope you all are keeping well during this COVID-19 lockdown. People have started joining. Before we start, let me explain how you can talk to us during the webinar. If you have any question during presentation, just write them through the question window. We have our question answer session at the end of presentation. I'd like to check from the audience whether they are getting me or not. Mr. Abhishek Jindal, are you getting me?
Yeah, I'm getting your voice. It's audible.
Thank you, Mr. Abhishek. I also would like to inform to the audience, if we face any of the internet network issue, we have our backup available and we can again start the session in next 5 to 6 minutes. So keep login. Now we'll start the session. Good evening, everyone. We are about to begin. My name is Mohan Gharat. I'm President of Association of Ammonia Refrigeration, an all-India organization for promotion of safe use of ammonia as a refrigerant through education, training, information, and standards. Our today's topic of the webinar is effect of air and water on ammonia refrigerant system, and for that we have with us our speaker, Mr. Anand Joshi. Mr. Anand Joshi is an engineer from Bharati Vidyapit College of Engineering in Industrial Electronics and Instrumentation. He is a partner in Manik Engineers, a very famous brand in refrigeration controls. He is a pioneer in many cost-effective refrigeration plant control and solutions. With his vast experience of 29 years, Manik has generated different products and solutions for energy optimization and conservation. He is a past president of our association. He is a past president ISHRE Pune chapter. He is also a member of ASHRE, Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, Indian Institute of Electronic and Telecommunication Engineer, Indian Dairy Association, and RATA. I also would like to thank our partner for their support for this AR webinar series. Mrs. Manik Engineer, for starting the presentation. Once again, I would like to remind you that if you have any question during the presentation, please write them in the question window. I will try to get more answers from the speakers. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohan. Thank you, Association of Ammonia Refrigeration, for giving me this opportunity to make presentation on effects of air and water on ammonia refrigeration system. And thank you, audience, for joining us this ammonia webinar by Association of Ammonia Refrigeration. Considering today's COVID situation, most of us are stuck at home or difficult to travel. So AR has taken up this initiative of conducting these webinars. So today I'm going to talk about effects of air and water. Air and water, as we know, is very essential for human life. But what happens is if this air and water comes into our refrigeration system, that is what we are going to talk about. As we know, there are two types of systems mostly popular in ammonia refrigeration in India and abroad. One is ammonia overfeed system or ammonia pump circulation system, in which ammonia is circulated through the pump, and another is a natural circulation or a gravity feed system, in which ammonia is circulated to the up through the system by the pressure difference. This is because of the pressure difference that high pressure in the receiver travels to the low pressure side of the evaporator. There is a reason this is called as the gravity system or the natural circulation system. The energy, as we consider now today's everywhere, energy is most critical part, and refrigeration is one of the largest consumer of energy in different applications of industry. If you talk about a dairy segment, it consumes 30% of the energy. But if you go to ice cream, it consumes 70% of the energy or total plant energy. If it is a cold storage, then 90% energy of the cold storage is consumed into the refrigeration plant. So if we are able to save anything into this energy part, we are able to achieve a great saving in overall. And saving in electricity is directly affecting the net return of investment and the profit of the company. So this ammonia, which we are talking about today, for our ammonia refrigeration system, we need a pure ammonia. Pure ammonia means it should be 99.95% pure ammonia. Normally, when we buy ammonia from the market, we do not get certificate of purity. It comes in cylinder, and many times we don't know what is the purity of the ammonia received. I suggest whenever you are buying ammonia next time, please ask for a purity certificate to the supplier manufacturer, because as we understand, we all know this is a typical refrigeration chart for saturated liquid and the vapor. Our all the ammonia refrigeration system depends on this chart. When we see that our plant is operating at say minus 40 degrees centigrade, the pressure of minus 0.28 bar by gauge pressure is there. It is directly it is best assume that we have a pure ammonia. Like this 99.94% pure ammonia will give you this minus 40 at minus 0.28 bar. This is very important. These charts are available with you everywhere. If anyone wants, you can always ask for AR and AR will provide you. But please remember throughout this presentation that the refrigeration system is totally depending on this chart. When we say 38 degree condensing, our pressure has to be 13.71. if our pressure is higher, then what happens is, or why pressure is going to be higher, we will see. But remember, theoretically, the refrigeration system should work on this chart. So this water and the non-condensable gas or the air, which contributes major part of it, affects our refrigeration system. It unfortunately does not affect in a good way as it happens good way to the human being. Water and air we know is very good, essential for us, but they are not essentials, or in fact they are not required in our refrigeration system. The air is considered as a non-condensable gas along with nitrogen, hydrogen, and hydrocarbons in ammonia refrigeration system, particularly because our operating range of say -45 to plus 40 degree or 42 degree condensing, these non-condensable gases do not condense or do not evaporate. They remain out throughout the gases, which does not give any refrigeration effect to us. So for example, what happens is, we'll see, if we have a ammonia at 35 degrees C, the pressure is around 13.5 kg per centimeter square. But at same pressure, nitrogen would require -165 degrees, 164 degrees centigrade to liquefy. So if nitrogen is present into our refrigeration system, it will always remain in gaseous state, and any gas remaining in the gaseous state with the into the evaporator side will not generate any positive refrigeration effects. What happens is with this air or nitrogen or other gases, we'll see further. Let's see how it comes into our system. Many a times when our refrigerant does not have a purity certificate, so it contains non-condensable gases, air, and then our plant is installed. When we are pressure testing, when proper evacuation is not done, proper vacuuming not done, when after the pressure testing, when for servicing and maintenance, whenever we are opening any parts of the system, that is a possibility of this air entering into the system. Then when we are charging ammonia oil or removing oil, we are opening a part of a system. There is always possibility of air entering into the system. Another thing which happens maybe is that the leakages. When our plant is operating in suction pressure is below atmospheric pressure, it is typically below -33 degrees centigrade. And if there is a small leak, whether into the piping or the walls, flanges, wall gaskets, or the glands, stems of the wall, compressor shaft seal, there is always sensors like temperature or sensors connected through sockets. If plant is in vacuum, it means the air inside the plant, the pressure inside the plant is lower than the atmospheric pressure. Then atmospheric air will enter into the plant. And another part is that when there is air into the plant, our temperature of the discharge temperature increases, which increases the ammonia temperature and also the oil temperature. Many times due to high temperature, oil may decompose, and this decomposition of oil will, along with the catalytic action with the metallic parts of metals into the system, may generate the will decompose the ammonia, because as we all know, ammonia is made of nitrogen and hydrogen. It will break into nitrogen and hydrogen. Both these gases are non-condensable in our system. Also, the oil lubricating oil may break, and it will generate this our hydrocarbons, and these hydrocarbons also, some of them are non-condensable into our system. So how do we know whether our system we have the non-condensable gases or air in? I'm going to say air now because percentage of air is much more than the other non-condensable gases. But what I am going to say, how we know about whether there is air in our plant or not. We can always measure the we know our compressor discharge pressure. We know the Receiver pressure, so if you are able to measure receiver pressure and measure the temperature of the receiver liquid, convert that temperature to saturated pressure, and what is the difference? That is the air. This is our actual pressure measured on the gauge. This is our equivalent pressure of the saturated pressure of the liquid into the evaporator. And extra pressure that is showing is a non-condensable gases. For example, our gauge pressure is showing 14.5 and our liquid temperature is say 38, and which means around 13.7 13.8 kg per centimeter square pressure. So 14.5 and 13.5 difference of 0.7 kg is non-condensable gases. These gases, what happens is with this air or the non-condensable gases in our system, it increases our electricity demand, it decreases our refrigeration capacity, and it affects our overall performance of the system. Then also the excess, as the air pressure, the pressure in the system increases, excess pressure leads to bearing and drive motors heating. It also shortens the belt life. Gasket failures are regular with the compressor. Then increase in pressure also increases the temperature, which shortens the compressor valves and promote the, and also the breakdown of the lubricant oil in compressor happens. Increase in temperature results in the increasing in the scaling on the condensers, where we need to now have a frequent cleaning, and which increases the maintenance cost of the condenser. Increase in discharge temperature, as I explained earlier, leads to the ammonia explosion, and ammonia may break into nitrogen and hydrogen, which are again non-condensable gases. So typically, if we have a 0.5% air in our plant, the pressure can increase by 1 psi, and power consumption can go up by 0.8. If we have 4% of air by volume into our plant, this power consumption will go up by 6.5%. This is a very high penalty to pay for our running plant, because our refrigeration plant is continuously running plant. And if its air remains in system, this effect is power directly affecting the power of the refrigeration plant. And if you add the losses of maintenance, oil failure, and the component failures, it becomes very high. So what we should do with this air? Naturally, if you don't want it, we have to remove it. And we have to, it is called the purging of the air. It means we have to take it out of the system. So what are the types available? We can do a direct purging, or what is called as a manual purging, or we can do automatic purging. Automatic purging means that there is a equipment machine provided which will separate out the air from ammonia and purge it into the atmosphere or the water, whatever the systems are available. Let's see what are these two types of purgings, automatic and manual. And then there are again two types in the automatic purging. One is compressing the mixture and condensing it using an external refrigerant device. Another is condensing of refrigerant using a small evaporator, using the refrigeration system itself, in which separate compressors are not used. Typically, when we do what is the manual purging, is we have a purge valve provided at the receiver or at the inlet of the condenser. It means that we have to do it manually, means shut down the plant, let the water run in condenser for maybe an hour or so. So whatever the ammonia gases are there, those are cooled down and become liquid, and what is left at the top is air. You must understand the density of air is lower than ammonia, so air will go up and ammonia liquid will go down. So we have to give sufficient time to settle down this or say air ammonia liquid down and air up, and open valve manually. One has to take most important provision when opening these valves. You should wear the mask, the gloves, the goggle, so that in case of ammonia comes out of this valve, you are not affected. And third part of this is that Possibility of ammonia leakage is always there. These precautions are very important. Now it depends on operator how much time he's going to do this, how much time is going to every day is going to do it, or is going to do it in 15 days, or going to do once in a month. That totally depends on the plant management and the facility to purge these airs. Second part, as we talk about automation of automatic purging system, as its advantage over manual one that you can do it automatically online. This purging systems have two types. One is using ammonia, using an external compressor and condensing unit, in which vapors are taken from the ammonia receiver, compressed and condensed into the condensing unit. So non-condensable liquid, whatever the condense, goes back into the our the receiver, and non-condensable gases are vented into it. This unit has got a separate condensing unit. It can be air cooled or a water cooled one. It has a separate compressor, so need to have a separate compressor, maintenance of that compressor, and also this different refrigerant is used into it. So you need to maintain extra spares. You need to maintain those parts, and in case of failure of a compressor or this, in this whole unit will fail. The advantage of this unit is that this can remove the air when even if the plant is not running. If your plant is not running, it will still keep on removing the air. Next part is using the refrigerant evaporator, using the refrigerant system which is available with us. In this unit, we have a heat exchanger which is fed a liquid from the refrigerant plant itself, and then we are taking the purge points maybe from the condenser or the receiver. They are brought into contact with this heat exchanger. If it is ammonia, it will become liquid and it is to be drained out and put it back into the system. If it is non-condensable gases like air, it has to be it will be vented out. Normally, it is provided with an automatic control system, so it will sense the difference between the liquid ammonia or ammonia and non-condensable gases, and it will vent out when there is when the vessel is full with the non-condensable gases. Remember, when we are talking about whether manual purging or automatic purging, the purge points are very critical, very important. From where we connect the system is very important. So we'll talk about purge points afterwards. So as I talk about manual and automatic purging, so what are the advantages of automatic purging? Automatic purging removes air online continuously without affecting the system performance. No need to shut down the system. No need to have an operator to operate it. And it is as it is an online system, it removes air immediately. There is no labor cost. There is no safety requirements. There is no manual intervention required into operating this purger. Whereas there is a disadvantage, like it has got initial cost. It has to we have to maintain those purge units, maybe solenoid valves and other transistors connected to these things. But this about capital cost. We will see later on what is the saving versus the investment. So as I said, the purging of the air, proper location of the purge points are very important. For example, when we are doing the manual purging, when you are shutting down the condenser, you have to purge it from the topmost point of the condenser or at the inlet point of the condenser. That is the topmost point of the system. But when you are doing the manual purging, automatic purging, this totally changes. In automatic purging, we need to separate the air and the gas. Let's see that in our refrigerant system, gas which is coming from the compressor to condenser, it may contain air. Now this air, at the entry point of the condenser, this air will be at the same velocity of the ammonia. So if we try to take a purging point from the inlet of the condenser, then our ammonia will come out. So let's talk about, we have a 5% of air in the plant. So when we are opening up inlet purge valve at the inlet of the condenser, 5% and 95% is ammonia. So 95% of ammonia gas will go to the purger. So it will not work. So we have to have a purge points where there is minimum presence of ammonia gas, and we are able to separate out the ammonia and liquid and ammonia non-condensable gases or air. So receiver also the same thing. It has to be the furthest point from the liquid entry to the condenser, because when liquid is entering into the condenser, it is possible that ammonia gases will be close to the purge entry point. So we have to take this at the end. You can see we cannot purge air from inlet of the evaporative condenser or the condenser inlet. We can purge it from the outlet. What happens is here, when this ammonia gas and the air both comes into the condenser, if you can see now here we have both gas and air same thing, but as we go down at the end of the condenser, whatever the ammonia gas is there, it becomes liquid, and what is accumulated is the air. So this foul gas, what we called as, we have to tap it at the outlet of the condenser. Different applications. This is a manual purge point for the evaporative condenser. We have these are the purge points for the automatic purging system. If we have a shell and tube condensers, we use it mostly into the process cooling and chemical pharmaceutical industries. Again, the shell in the condenser, there is a liquid entry point, there is a liquid drain point. So our purge point has to be furthest away from the liquid entry point. If it is at center, it can be at the end. If it is center, it can be at the two sides. If it is at the end, we can have it purge point into the other side. Very uncommon now, but if we have a vertical condensers, it should be, if this is our liquid entry, it should be on the top of this condenser side. These are the typical examples showing how two purge points are being taken. You can see this is a PHE condenser having a ammonia coming into the condenser. This is becoming a drain, and this is the purge point. This is a U-trap to avoid any gases going to the receiver. So we have to make sure that our purge point is before the U-trap. Same thing in the evaporative condenser. This is your hard gas coming in, and this is your purge point over here. In our cold storages, many times we use atmospheric condensers. We can use and install air purger on atmospheric condensers also. You can see here this header is connected for a condensers, and purge point is taken from this place on the header. So these are the different purge points we can connect. Always remember, success of an air purger depends on the proper purge point connections. This is a photograph of a compression-based unit. You can see this unit is installed on the top, and this piping is connected at the bottom on the receiver. These are the receiver points, and this has got inbuilt compressor and monitoring unit. Second one, this is a photograph of a purger which is being running using a refrigeration system, in-house refrigeration system. So typically these drawings are showing you the purge points taken from the outlet of the condensers. A multi-point purger can be used in a big system if you have a multiple condensers and receiver. This is another purge point coming receiver, and it is liquid is fed through this LP vessel, pump vessel system. Liquid is fed here and it is going back into the LP vessel. So whatever the liquid comes in, the cools the coil inside the purger, and these foul gases are connected one by one to the purger. So when the foul gases come in contact with this coil, it becomes condenses, and if there is ammonia, it becomes liquid. It is fed back into the system. If it is non-condensable gases are accumulated, there is a control system available here which senses the non-condensable gases and vents into the water. This drawing is for pump recirculation or LP vessel system or forced liquid feed system. And this drawing is for the gravity fed system. We can install air purgers in gravity fed system also. We can install it in, we can use a one common slop pot, or we can connect to the available accumulators in the system. This is a typical results of actual purging. You can see here the discharge pressure was almost at 16 kg per centimeter square, and after commissioning of the air purger, discharge pressure come down to almost 11, 12 kg. So you can see how much the pressure drop is possible and how much saving is possible. These are the two. I will just give you the two examples of energy saving. Typically, a freezing plant operating at -40, evaporating and condensing at 38 degrees centigrade with the 500 refrigeration kilowatt capacity, power required is around 280 kilowatt. If our pressure is 1.5 kg higher, that is from 13.7 to 1.5, then we have 15.2 kg per centimeter square. Then power required will go from 281 kilowatt to 300 kilowatt to achieve the same refrigeration capacity. So this 19 kilowatt extra for 6,000 hours operation in a year is around 114,000 kilowatts. So considering the cost of power in India, which is around 6 rupees per kilowatt, it will cost us around 6,85,000 Indian rupees. So you can consider it is a payback period can be almost less than a year. And typically, very regular applications of in India is potato cold storage. We got more than 14,000 potato cold storages in India. Typical, we have 5,000 metric ton is a very standard cold storage. So I have made this case study for this. This is a practical results obtained from potato cold storage, where we have a 1 6-cylinder and 1 3-cylinder compressor running continuously at -10 degree evaporating and 38 degree condensing. Power is around, refrigeration capacity is around 518 kilowatt. The power required is 148 kilowatt. Now, if your pressure goes from 1.5 to 15, then power required becomes 157 kilowatt. So see, this is a positive. This is a -10 evaporating. It means the our evaporating our pressure is higher than the atmosphere. In spite of that, there is air into the plant, and that cost that 9 kilowatt is per hour we are consuming. Potato cold storage normally run 9 to 10 months in India, so I've considered only 5,000 hours of operation. So at 6 rupees, it will talk about 2,70,000 or 270,000 Indian rupees. Also, this will have a power refrigeration capacity loss of 35 kilowatt. So to compensate this 35 kilowatt, you may have to run additional compressor, or may have to compromise on the refrigeration capacity of the system. So if you add this 35 kilowatt refrigeration capacity, then this cost will go up higher, and it will go to almost 400,000 Indian rupees or 4 lakh Indian rupees. So this is a net costing of a cost benefit of removing air onto the purger. These are the practical results achieved. Next part of this topic is water contamination in ammonia refrigeration system. We are going to see what happens as if there is a water into the ammonia. Please remember, air and ammonia, they are two separate things. Air does not mix with ammonia, but water has a very good, ammonia has very high solubility with water. That means water and ammonia are very good friendly friends, friendly people. If they come together, they immediately mix. We call this ammonia and water as a great affinity to each other. For say atmospheric pressure at 30 degrees centigrade, saturated solution of ammonia and water will contain 30% of ammonia. It means in water we can have a 30% ammonia mixing at 30 degrees centigrade. Now, if we go to 0 degrees centigrade, that is typical positive cold storage applications, then this ammonia solubility goes to 46%. And if you go to -33, which is our freezing and cold storage temperatures, possibility of ammonia getting mixed into the water is 100%. It means 100% solubility is there for the ammonia when it is a minus 33-degree temperature. Now, what happens is when ammonia becomes ammonia and water mix and becomes this. So what it becomes is a hydrous ammonia solution. Remember, I told you at the beginning, we need anhydrous ammonia of 99.95% purity. Now, if there is a water, then what happens is if we have a 10% water in a refrigeration plant, so at minus 0.3 kg centimeter, that is around minus 40 degree, we will get only minus 38 degree. Instead of minus 40, we'll get minus 38. If it is 30%, we'll get only minus 32. So it means if we want to run, we want to get minus 40 for 10% of ammonia dilution, we need to lower our actual suction pressure. It also means that ammonia temperature has gone up, so we need to lower the suction pressure. We have to operate compressor at lower suction pressure, which is going to cost electricity, which is going to affect the refrigeration capacity of the system. At 2 degrees centigrade, where we should get minus 9, typically a potato cold storage requirement, 10% of ammonia will, instead of minus 9, will give only minus 7. Again, this directly affects our power consumption of system. Power consumption of the system is one way, and there are also effects, other effects in the system we will see. Let's see how the water comes into the system. There are two ways in which water comes into the system. One is the contamination during the construction and initial startup, and contamination after system has been running. During the when the plant is being constructed, many times people do the hydro testing of the plant, vessels, equipments, which is not correct. It should be done with the nitrogen, dry nitrogen. But if once you do a hydro testing, it's very difficult to remove the water. And this water is properly not removed, it will remain into the system. Then we have the condensation occurring into the pipes and other equipments which are lying on the site and which are not clean while installing into the plant. Condensation may occur when air, many times people use normal air available in the atmosphere for the testing of the equipments. Along with this air, the moisture will go in. That will see how much is the moisture can go in with the air, and that even if we vacuum and remove the air, water which has entered with it will remain into the system. And a second part comes in our purity of ammonia. If ammonia is not, we are not using a pure ammonia, water will remain in the system. Now what happens is that our ammonia, water and ammonia water pressure is higher than the ammonia. So water will always remain at the bottom. Consider a case when we are charging ammonia into the plant. Ammonia cylinder pressure is higher. So when we connect it to the system, the ammonia starts passing from the ammonia cylinder to the plant. When the system pressure, when the both pressure equalizes, our operator always see that there is some water into the this cylinder. So he has to actually elevate the cylinder so that it can drain the remaining ammonia into the system. But what he does is that he tilts the ammonia by 180 degrees. This cylinder by 180 degrees. So whatever the water into the cylinder which was at the bottom, and make sure that 100% it enters into the our system, and that water starts coming in. Then there is a possibility of rupture of tubes, like on the condenser sides or the receiver side, shell and tube, ice bank tanks, fillers. We have these systems where possibility of their water and ammonia are in contact. If any ruptures or leakages are there, then water will enter into it. Then there are sometimes while draining the oil or refrigerant from the system, there are possibilities of water entering into the system. Or also when system is operating below atmospheric pressure, during the pump down, leakages into the wall stem, hoses or the flange joints will lead into the leakage of the, will make sure that air is enter into it, and air, along with the air, water will enter. Next, we'll see how it happens. What happens is when water water comes into the this system. This is a typical example of water entering into the air. Let's say that our system has an air purger. If we don't have an air purger, air will remain, and whatever is water has come in, it will also remain in the system. Let's assume we have an air purger. It is removing 5 liters of air per minute into the ammonia plant. The ambient temperature is 35 degrees centigrade with 75% RH, which is a typical coastal condition. So you can see that at 35-degree ambient temperature, 75% RH, the water content is 75 grams of per kg of air. Now, when we say 5 liters of air is being removed into the system continuously per minute, it means that 5 liters of air is being injected into the system continuously. So it means that when 5 liters is removed per minute, we are entering 7.65 grams of water per hour. So see, you can calculation is here 5 liters and into 60 minutes will give 7.65 grams of water per hour. That is 46 liters of water entering into system for 1 year operation. In 10 years, we'll have around 460, 470 liters of water just because of the air entering into the system. This water is from the air. Even though your purger is removing the air, this water will remain. Now, what happens is with this water, as we have seen, because of the water, the suction, the ammonia pressure temperature chart does not hold good. Your temperature rises, ammonia temperature rises when it is mixed with the water, which means for 10% of ammonia, typically 2 degrees centigrade rise is there. Now, rise in this temperature has to compensate that. We have to operate it at lower suction pressure capacity, lower suction pressure of the compressor. I had to have additional refrigeration capacity, which reduces system efficiency, increases electricity cost. It also, now the water is being there into the system, so it starts corrosing the equipments and material, because most of the time we use steel as the components, steel components or steel material into the refrigeration system. The corrosion of this equipment starts because air is entering into the system, which will give the nitrogen, oxygen, then water into ammonia and the metal parts, lot of corrosion. Secondly, when this water normally mix with the oil, it will start the aging of the oil. Aging of the oil means the oil quality will continuously deteriorate. Oil functioning, oil capacity to function as required will deteriorate, which will increase the wear and tear of the compressor. We need to frequently change the oil, so oil consumption goes up. These are all the effects of the water into the system. So where water accumulates, as we have seen in case of air accumulates in the high pressure side of the system, whereas the water occurs on the low pressure side of the system. So it can occur in the low pressure receiver system. If we have a high stage booster system, it will always occur in the booster system. In flooded systems, it will occur, water will find water into the evaporators and surge drum. In DX system, it will be in suction accumulators. Why it goes into the low side? See, the water and vapor, ammonia and water has got a large pressure difference. For example, 2 degrees centigrade, the vapor pressure of ammonia is 3.6 kg per centimeter square, whereas the water pressure is 0.07 per kg centimeter square. So when your plant is running, when your suction pressure is 3.6, the ammonia will evaporate and the gas will go through the system, but water will remain into the bottom of the system. This water will continuously goes on accumulating into the low side. Can we detect and can we understand if there is a water in our system? Like air, we see we can, like air, we have seen, we can find out the pressure difference of the actual pressure and saturated pressure of the liquid temperature corresponding to the liquid temperature. The difference is there. Similarly, that's the easy way of it. Ammonia, water ammonia, it's a bit difficult, but it can be measured. You can have a ammonia evaporation test tube tongs, the sampling assembly, vented stopper, and this water bath in which you need to put up this beaker, and fume hood and rubber gloves, face shields, safety equipments are very important. Where we can take this sampling of the water? We can take the sampling of the water from the pump systems for the oil drain walls, and from the liquid transfer lines to the accumulator in DX systems. This is a typical sampling beaker design. This is showing a milliliter volume into the beaker, 100 ml, 2.5 ml. The beaker volume has got a stand. This is a liquid mixture entry. This is an isolator, and this one is provided with a non-return valve, and this is a vapor vet. So normally what we'll be doing, we'll connecting ammonia liquid over here, and we'll accumulate sample into this sampler. Typically, we will take, once we connect this, this is the procedure. Wear protective clothing, face shield, hand gloves. Very important, make sure you have all the PPE equipments available with you before taking any sample. Connect the sampling converter to the liquid ammonia system, like into the low pressure vessel into ammonia liquid line, pump liquid outlet, and to the oil drain valves in the gravity feed system, and make sure that this is secured, this glass is secured, and you connect this over here, take a sample. Now, normally what we suggest is close the walls of sampler and crack open the wall. Open one turn only, depending on the length of the pipe and upstreams of the converter, the temperature. It may take several. It may take 5 to 10 minutes to get a sample. And what we suggest is that always take out the sample. First sample what we collect, you put it aside and take a second sample. So any contaminations are coming into that, it will be drained. Normally it will take 30 to 60 seconds to get 100 ml sample. Make sure that you are connected 100 ml sample, close the converting walls, close everything, and then when it is at 100 ml mark, turn off it. Place the container in the safe stand or a rack and ventilated area. Allow the ammonia to boil out completely. It will take 1 to 2 hours to boil out the ammonia. So once the ammonia is boiled out, to measure the residual quantity, you can, because see, we have this beaker, we are having this 100 ml sample, and then whatever the ammonia, it will boil out, and normally 70% of this content is the actual ammonia. So others may be oil and other impurities. You can use this chart to check the residuals at depending on the temperature, maybe minus 30 or plus 30 degree Fahrenheit. It will give you the percentage of the water. This is an ammonia dehydrator or ammonia purifier. The function of this unit is to remove the ammonia. What has been done here is that it is provided a high temperature liquid from receiver and going back to the system. They're taking the samples from the low pressure side receiver. You can show here actual installation. Sample is taken from the low pressure side. So if ammonia comes into the system, it will evaporate, become gas, and go back to the system. If there is water, oil, it will accumulate at the bottom. Normally, when it is filled with the ammonia, frosting will be there on this unit, on this complete pipe. When there is no ammonia, the frosting will go, and or when it is water or oil, the frosting will go at the bottom pipe, and you can remove it using the dead man's valve. Typical installation, you can see here the liquid is fed from the pump outlet here. and this is a high pressure liquid from receiver going into the system is taken back to the LP vessel. So the heat of this HP receiver may be 37, 38 degree is used to boil the ammonia. Now remember the difference between air purger and the ammonia purifier. Air purger is condensation, whereas differentiation of air and then ammonia is by condensation method, whereas the differentiation of water is by means of evaporation. These are the two different things. So air purger will not remove the total water of the system. There's a myth that air purger removes the water. Normally, the water is removed from the low pressure side, whereas the air is removed from the high pressure side. This is a typical cost calculation example, feedback example of what happens is when we have water in system. For a 300 kilowatt booster compressor at minus 40 degree evaporating and minus 7 degree condensing, as it is a booster compressor. And I told you the ammonia will occur only at the low pressure side. So minus 7 degree condensing temperature, power required is 321 kilowatts at COP of 3.25. This data has been collected from some compressor manufacturers software. If you have a 10% of water contamination for same 300 kilowatt capacity, you have to run it at minus 42. So instead of minus 40, we are running at minus 42. Then power required will be 345 kilowatt. That is COP of 3.26 will drop down to 3.04. That also means we need 7.6% extra power. If our plant is running for 6,000 hours in a year, the extra power required will be around 1,44,000 kilowatt. So as in India, the electricity cost we have assumed throughout this presentation is 6 rupees per kilowatt. The cost of the total electricity, which is due to the water in a plant, will be around rupees 864,000 or 8,64,000 Indian rupees. This clearly shows that it's a huge cost. And then again, while calculating this, we have not considered other effects, which means the corrosion into the plant, the failure of the components, the frequent changing of the oil. If you add that all costs, this becomes very high. So that's all about today's presentation. Just I'll go through the quick review of what is been talked today. So today's takeaways: air accumulates at high pressure side of the refrigerant system like condensers and receivers. Presence of air increases discharge pressure, increases power consumption, reduces refrigerant capacity, increases wear and tear of compressor, increases scaling of condenser, and of course, all this costs money. Now, what I suggest: remove air, and save energy. Water side, water accumulates on low pressure side of the refrigerant system, like evaporators, pump circulator vessels. So water has a great affinity with ammonia has a great affinity with waters. It makes hydrous ammonia solution. Hydrous ammonia solution does not perform as per our standard pressure temperature chart, and it increases the water temperature. So presence of water increases ammonia temperature, contaminates, lowers system efficiency, increases electricity cost, causes corrosion into the refrigerant cycle, accelerates aging of the oil, increases wear and tear, increases the service cost, manpower cost. So again, cost money. Remove water continuously, save money, and because finally we are in business, saving money, having a better efficiency and better working system, less maintenance, less pull down times of the plants, less shutdown times of the plants, sorry, are important. So all this leads to making efficient and safe plant. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to the presentation, and thank you, AAR, for giving this opportunity to make a presentation. Thank you, Mohan. Over to you.
Thank you, Anand sir, for this knowledgeable presentation. Now we are open for the questions. If you have any question, please write them in the question window. I'll try to get the answer from our speaker. We already have a few questions with us.
Yes,
Our
Mohan, we
first
can go
question
ahead
is
with the
from-
questions.
Pardon me, sir.
We can go ahead with the questions with us.
Yes. Our first question is from Mr. Nitin Malviya, and he's asking about what ambient temperature effects on the evacuation of non-condensable from the system by vacuuming the process. During this process, will the ambient condition affect this process?
So our ammonia system is a closed loop system. So when you are vacuuming a refrigerant plant, it should not affect ammonia. Your ambient temperature should not affect the vacuuming process. It's a closed loop system. You are vacuuming, removing the water, the air into the air or into the inside the plant. It should not affect your ambient condition. Should not affect. This question is related to the removing of air into the nitrogen gas during the pressure system.
Okay, our next question is from Mr. Dhanraj Katte, and he's asking how can we measure air pressure when air is already with ammonia, and how we will measure the air weight by percentage, any formula? I am referring your air versus power loss table slide.
See, I have already given you the method of measuring air into the refrigerant plant. If you measure the, you know that your discharge of the receiver pressure, you measure the liquid temperature in the receiver, convert that liquid temperature into corresponding saturated pressure. That will give you the difference is your air into the plant. Now to convert that pressure, you need to have the total volume of ammonia available, and then based on that volume of ammonia in your plant, using certain formulas, you can convert into the percentage of the air. The formula here may be difficult to express over here.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Mr. Mandi. Pardon me, sir.
Yeah, this difference and this formula which I'm showing you is the actual pressure, the refrigerant pressure, and the actual pressure. What is higher than the refrigerant pressure is non-condensable. This again, I'll try this actual pressure, which is measured at the gauge by the gauge into the receiver, and you measure the temperature of the liquid and that convert that temperature into the saturated pressure as a refrigerant pressure. So difference is non-condensable gases.
Thank you,
okay,
sir.
Mohan, we can go to next question.
Yes. Our next question is from Mr. Mandeep Singh, and he's asking, in case of super low temperature -40 degrees Celsius, if water contains in the system, can it freeze while expansion and make trouble for the controls?
No, water does not freeze because water remains water when ammonia and water comes in together. As I told you, it becomes an hydrous solution. It's not ammonia. It doesn't remain ammonia, and your water becomes hydrous solution. So it does not freeze. Water remains. Water and ammonia become one.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Mr. Praveen Chopde. You want to explain something more, sir? Tell me.
Yeah, see, if you see, this is -40. So if you have a 30% of ammonia, the ammonia pressure will rise. So instead of -40, you will get it -32. It does not freeze the water because it has become a one solution. It's there. No, it's see, like oil and ammonia, oil does not mix with the water. Whereas in case of oil does not mix with the ammonia. But in case of water, oil and ammonia mix together and they becomes hydrous solution. So it does not freeze. But of course, the presence of water into the ammonia affects the functioning of the valves and controls because it starts the corrosion of the material.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Mr. Praveen Chopde, and is asking, is air and water has same losses in freon gas also?
Yes, freon also the losses are there. That's now depends on the characteristics of which synthetic refrigerant you are using, and because synthetic refrigerants requires more power. In fact, losses are more into the with synthetic refrigerants as compared to ammonia.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Mr. Jetty Pawan Kumar. He is asking, is manual air purging is safe and perfect?
Manual air purging has been in place for many years. If you take the proper precautions, it can be safe. But there are things you remember. Take a precaution. You have to shut down the plant, run your condenser for next hour or two. Make sure that ammonia gas has been liquefied and converted into the liquid, and then slowly open your vent valves, connect those vent connections into the water bucket, and be there, monitor it. If there is a ammonia leak, you have to close it immediately. So safely, if you take the precautions, it's like you are driving a car on the tilted roads. When there is a lot of turns are there, your car driving skill becomes very important. Same in case of manual purging. Your precautions, use of PPE, taking proper appropriate care, having your own SOP for manual purging is very important.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Mr. Nandakishore Kotkar, and is asking, if the water contains in ammonia, how to find out the content?
See, I have already explained that how to measure the water contamination. One is very simple way. If your suction pressure and the suction temperature does not match, like your compressor is running at 2 kg and you are not able to get corresponding -9 degrees centigrade, it means, and your this written ammonia suction ammonia temperature is much higher, then definitely you have the water in system. That's the first indication. And secondly, I have explained how to use this apparatus and how you take the sample into this, and you can use this sampler to get the ammonia from low side, let the ammonia evaporate, and what is the remain is the water.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Mr. Somen Maiti, and is asking, how frequently we should purge air from the system?
Technically, you should use automatic air purger, so it should continuously purge your air. You do not want air to remain in a system. Air is like a passenger traveling in a train without ticket. It does not contribute anything to the income of the train. Because of the air, it does not condense, does not evaporate, does not generate any refrigeration effect. It extends your electricity consumption increases, your refrigerant capacity decreases. You should purge continuously, automatically is the correct solution. And if you do not want to do it automatically, you monitor your discharge pressure. The moment your discharge pressure go higher than your design condition, like your design condition is for 38 degree, your pressure is 13.7. If your pressure goes to 13.8, 13.9, if you want to do the manual purging, follow the procedure and do the manual purging.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Mr. Sridhar Kamble, and is asking, when reciprocating compressor servicing is done, air persists within the system. How do we ensure the air is completely removed?
It's very difficult when you're servicing a compressor. even though you isolate the walls, when you open any part, any components, so always possibility of air entering into the system. So once there is no way by taking a precaution that air does not enter the system. You are working into the atmosphere, air will always enter into the system. Now, once you finish your compressor servicing work, you have to make sure that you keep your air pressure working on the moment you start the plant, or if you are doing manual purging, you must purge air once your servicing is complete and you run the plant. You may stop the plant after 2 hours, take proper precautions, follow the procedures and purge the air.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Mr. Nikhil Vakchaure and is asking, in one of the example you said there will be 459 liters of water after 1 year, even after having the purger.
I'm not able to hear Mohan correctly. The last question I could not hear.
Yes, I'm repeating, sir. Are you getting me now?
Yeah, I'm getting you now.
The question is from Mr. Nikhil Vakchaure and is asking, in one of the example you said there will be 459 liters of water after 1 year, even after having a purger. Why it is so? And the purger are
Yes.
for removing air, so it will reduce the water which may form after the condensation of air.
What I have explained example is that the quantity of water or the moisture in air which enters into the system. What example I've given you is that in case when we have this purger running in our system and we assume that our purger is removing 5 liters of air into per minute. So this figure of 459 liters or 46 liters per year, water entering from the with air. As I told you, the water now finally gets accumulated at the low side of the system, whereas the air gets accumulated at the high side of the system. When purger removes the air, the water remains in the system. Water does not go out. Purger will not vent the water, and water will remain into the system.
Okay, sir. Our next question is from Mr. Daniel Masia and is asking how we can remove water from a running plant. And his next question is how we can remove the water. Okay, he's asking about how we can remove the water from the running plant.
You can use ammonia dehydrator system to remove the water. This dehydrator is connected in a plant which is running continuously. So whenever the water accumulates at the bottom, you can drain it using this dead man's wall into the bucket with the safety system. So if there is no water, the vessel will always be full with ammonia. You don't have to drain. But water once accumulated in the system, you can drain it when your plant is running. If you use this ammonia dehydrator, if you are not using that ammonia dehydrator, then you have to drain it from the oil drain points provided at the low pressure vessel and also at the your evaporator sites, low pressure sites. But remember, when you are using these points, possibility of ammonia coming from that point is also there. And as water is mixed into the ammonia, it may not separate out and it may not evaporate completely. So you need to make sure, take proper precautions when you are draining it manually. It is better to use a dehydrator which will separate ammonia and water and gives you only water can be drained out.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Mr. Praveen Chopde and is asking you about what is your view about low charge ammonia refrigerant system. Also is asking, is it compulsory required to buy automatic air purger and ammonia purifier system for chiller application? Those who are buying only chillers.
Sir, yeah, I try to answer the second question first. If you have a chiller system and you check your compressor system performance, if your system performance of suction pressure, discharge pressure are as per the design parameters and as per the ammonia pressure temperature chart running, and you do not have any problem. You are able to maintain the corresponding your temperature, pressures and temperatures are mentioned, then you may not require. But if your chiller, you are not getting the performance, your plant discharge pressure is higher than your design required condition. If your pressure is lower than your system, then you have to use these systems. You can connect it one system, one purger system to multiple chillers also. Always refer to this chart. If you have a say minus 25 degree brine and you are running at minus 30, your suction pressure always has to be 0.19 bar. And if you're design at 38 degree condensing, your pressure has to be 13.71 bar. If these pressures are maintained, then there is no problem. But if you are not able to maintain that pressure, your system suction pressure is lower, discharge pressure is higher, then you have to install ammonia purifier and air purger systems. Air purgers you can install common for your multiple chillers, so that one purger may serve 4 or 5 chillers. Same cases with the ammonia purifier system. One you can install for multiple chiller systems and connect it maybe every 2 months different chiller.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to take last 2 to 3 questions.
So
The last
his first part was Mohan, there was a first part of low charge ammonia.
low charge ammonia refrigerant system.
Yes, so low charge ammonia systems are definitely going to be there. It's a future, but you have to consider your application, whether you really need to go for a low charge system or there are alternatives which you can achieve depending on your system. What are the rules, regulations, whether your ammonia charge in your system at present system is permitted as per the government rules. Because when you go for a low charge ammonia system, definitely there is additional cost. There is additional cost of the equipment system. So you need to find out the balance of it. If you are putting up a plant very close vicinity to cities, better go with the low charge ammonia systems. But if your plants are refrigerant plants are into the industrial zone, you find out whether your charge is not exceeding the limit. Then you can consider what you want to go.
Thank you, sir, for this insight about low charge ammonia system. I'll take next 2 questions. If you are not able to take your question in this session, you can write them in the question window. We'll try to get with the answers from our speakers by email IDs. We have our next question from Mr. Jetty Pawan Kumar, and is asking how to confirm that our air purger was working perfectly.
Can you repeat the question, Mohan?
How to confirm that our air purger is working perfectly?
I just share in 2 minutes my example with one of the customer. It's long, almost 10 years back old story. That time automatic air purgers were not much popular into India. We installed air purger in this low temperature cold storage, and my person was there for commissioning. For 2-3 days he was there. Plant was working. He made a handover, made everything. Customer make the full payment. My person went back to the hotel. Next day morning, I got a call from customer saying that, boss, your purger is not working. It is not working. It was purging air for 3 days continuously. And today morning, there is no purging. There is no air coming out of the purger. So my person was supposed to take a train. I said, you cancel the ticket, go back to the plant. He went there. He found out that, sir, discharge pressure, when we started the plant, was around 15.5. Now it has come down to 13.2. So discharge pressure 13.2 is correct considering the ambient conditions of that particular plant. And since there is no air, there was no air coming out of the plant. So, but customer was not very, was not ready to accept that there is no air into the plant. So I said, you bring in the air in the plant and we will prove that there is a purger is working. So As a risk-taking ability of individual person, he agreed that we need to prove that purger is working. So we shut down the plant. We charged 200 kg of nitrogen into the plant, and we put on the plant running. We found out pressure again gone back to 15.5 kg. Started the purger, and then within around 3 to 4 hours, the pressure dropped down to 13.2. Then customer agreed that plant purger is working. So what I'm saying here is that if your purger discharge temperature or your condensing temperature pressure is maintained at the rated condition and there is no increase in the discharge pressure, it means your purger is working. Purger, if is removing continuous air and then say that 1 month my purger is removing air, that is not correct. It means there are leakages into the plant and air is continuously working. Somewhere down the line, your purger must stop working and discharge pressure should remain as per the design, local design conditions and guidelines.
Our next question, sir, is from Mr. Satish Mahajan. He is asking, is it possible to remove system water from ammonia purifier?
Yes, that is the function of ammonia purifier, to remove the water. Function of ammonia purifier is to remove the water, and it will remove the water only, water and oil.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to take the last questions of today's session from Mr. Praveen Salunke, and is asking, is there any government norms compulsion for use of air purger and ammonia purifier?
At present, there are no compulsions of using these purgers or ammonia purifiers in India, and also there are no government incentives on using this. But it is, in my opinion, it is very important for the client, for his plant benefits, for extending his plant life and achieving better performance from the plant. It is better to install automatic purging systems and ammonia purification systems.
I would like to take our last question of today's session, that is, how much time required to place hydrator in existing system, by Mr. Pawan Kumar.
Sir, whether this automatic purging system or ammonia dehydrator system can be installed in existing running plants in 2 or 3 days maximum. We don't need much of the shutdown time. It's just a time required to connect it to the system, because systems are very easy to install, and 2 to 3 days are more than sufficient to install in existing plant.
Thank you, sir. I think we answered all the questions. Anand sir, would you like to mention anything else over here?
No, Mohan, if it is time is permitting to AR, we can take more questions, or we can send independent. Or if there are many questions, we can send an independent answer to them. Secondly, I would like to thank you very much for your audience for attending this seminar and supporting Association of Ammonia Refrigeration. I also want to put a thank you to AR for giving me opportunity to make a presentation over here.
Thank you, Anand sir, for this knowledgeable presentation. And